You're listening to the Fanboy Garage Podcast.
And welcome to the Fanboy Garage. I'm Chris Lasanti, joined by my co-hosts Vanana.
What's up?
And Aaron Varola.
Yo, what's up, folks? Welcome to episode 135 of the Fanboy Garage. This is a special episode because I actually get to welcome a guest, Mr. Ryan Arey from ScreenCrush. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Ready to talk some WandaVision.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is going to be a very short and tight episode for all of you guys who are listening and watching, but we are not going to waste any more time. We're going to cut to the chase and talk a little bit about that finale of WandaVision, which had everyone talking. People seemed super excited. A lot of people seemed a little disappointed. But Ryan, dude, you are our guest. Tell us what you thought. Just quick high-level view of what you thought about the episode.
I mean, it's my job to come up with to find Easter eggs and to come up with theories and make videos about them, right? So basically I came up with theories I didn't even think were remotely going to be true. Yeah. But it's fun. It's fun to do that. That's the great thing about a show like this that presented like a half hour at a time, is that we could go, oh, maybe, whereas if they'd released it on the same day, we wouldn't have gotten that.
Right.
So I wasn't disappointed that my favorite fan theory didn't happen, or it wasn't Mephisto, or that, that Quicksilver was a boner joke. I didn't care about any of that. You can't approach things for what's not on screen. You have to judge by what's there. And what was there was, good MCU fun. Right. I think that enough of the teased mysteries paid off for me. It still left enough questions to make us want to see the next thing, which of course, just like a comic book, that's what they're always wanting us to do, is to buy the next issue, watch the next thing. I thought it was a satisfying finale. I'm not really big on characters flying around, hitting each other and stuff. like Man of Steel, or normally it doesn't work for me. But I thought in this fight, the way they choreographed it, very much with they could have been on the ground. They obeyed certain rules of gravity, in terms of how they hurled things at each other. I think that's the right way to do a flying fight, to kind of keep them centered and not knocking into shit and flying around and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Where you're kind of losing track with who's flying. Yeah.
Or the Matrix Revolutions last fight, where it no longer feels like it has any weight because it's so obviously Black Panther finale, that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. And what do you think about that the Vision on Vision fight scene?
Loved that. My prediction was wrong. I thought, it was going to phase into him and take him over. This was much better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that.
Yeah, and this was so good. This, it was a lot like Vision's last conversation with Ultron, where he did have to blast Ultron to defeat him, but beforehand you get this beautiful little moment, with the two of them watching the sunset. Nothing's ever beautiful because it lasts, and I was born yesterday. One of my favorite parts of that movie. So of course, for the Vision to defeat the Vision, he has to be analytical and outsmart himself, and he knows exactly how to do that. And I didn't realize this. It's not an Easter egg that I put in the video, but that whole Ship of Theseus conversation is from the comics, which I always appreciate a cut from the comics. That's awesome. There's an issue of the Avengers where Vision talks to his future self. I haven't gone back and read it yet, and I think it's a more recent issue, but that's one I missed. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that was a great scene. Obviously, Paul Bettany was trolling the shit out of us fans. Until the last part. I'm like, and I actually called it on our last episode. I'm like, this dude is gonna be himself. That's who totally talking about.
Yeah. At least he was nice enough to say it a couple days before the episode.
He was.
Yeah. I think they were kind of painting themselves in a corner a little bit, because I think the fan theories, and we were doing it here on the show. Our fan theories were off the chain. Oh my God, Reed Richards is gonna pop. Everyone was talking about that.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. And
that was our fault though. No one, I don't think Paul Bettany thought, oh, you guys are frozen. Sorry. Vanessa, you're not frozen for me.
No, I think Aaron froze.
Aaron froze. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think Paul Bettany thought that was going to happen. I don't think that was his master plan. I just think he's very English and made a very British joke, the kind of thing that he thought was going to be hilarious and didn't turn out to be that. Similarly, Tiana Paris said, I can't wait for the episode with the engineer reveal. And so she was talking about, oh yeah, when I get to show off my powers, but the rest of us are going, is it Reed Richards? Is it going to be, Blue Marvel from the comic? It's because that's what we do. We like to speculate and have fun, but you can't let your heart get broken when you're wrong. I've been there. I've done that to myself, and that's not what it's about.
100%. I mean, I think the fact that we have been anticipating the multiverse, because obviously the Doctor Strange movie is called In the Multiverse of Madness. We got to see J.K. Simmons as a different version of J. Jonah Jameson at the end of Far From Home. We know about Electro with Jamie Foxx and Doc Ock with Alfred Molina and all of that stuff that's going to be in the next Spider-Man movie. So I think a lot of those fan theories, especially since they said that this show was going to tie into Doctor Strange, we went a little overboard with the multiverse elements of it. And of course, Evan Peters showing up as Pietro certainly didn't help, or it certainly did help, I guess, in some ways lead to those conversations, because that was like a J.K. Simmons thing all over again. Obviously not, but
right.
Yeah, so I think that's what led to a lot of that. But I think, unfortunately, sometimes, like what I've seen the last couple of days on social media, is that we tend to argue or debate more about like our opinions than we do about the actual, like, the art, the show, or the whatever itself. And that, like, the show itself almost gets lost because I see more people going back and forth about whether there's validity to their disappointment, or whether, the show was any good now because of this, and this. And I do about people actually talking about the merits of the show itself, which is unfortunate in some of these cases. But
one thing that's nice about this is it's a one and done. There was Jonathan Nolan for Westworld season, I think for season 3, or no, it was for season 2. And I'm going to badly paraphrase this. Basically said that, we had this big twist in season 1, but fans figured it out. So now we're trying to like make this Reddit proof in a way. Same thing with Game of Thrones. I think they were looking for the subversion. They wanted to go against expectations, things like that. And boy, I hope Marvel never tries to do that. Like, for any comic book fan, it was obvious from the very first trailer that Agnes was Agatha Harkness.
Right.
Okay. If you wanted to have this kind of thing spoiled for you, you can go on ScreenCrush, watch my videos. I said it every single episode, right? If you're that kind of fan. Most fans are much more casual. Most fans just want to watch it, enjoy the art, and they're fine with that. So, we can tear it apart like that, or like you said, we just take it for face value and what they gave us. You like it or you don't, accept it or reject it on its own merits.
Yeah.
I was pretty satisfied with the finale, and I think this was the only episode that I watched twice. And I think at first got that
Shame
memory
on you,
error.
Banana.
I think at first it might have felt a little bit like disappointment, but then on the second watch, I realized it was more so, I didn't expect that. Because we were going wild with the theories and you're reading so much online, but the finale really did, on the second watch, it really did the story justice, because this is Wanda's story.
Yeah.
This is not fan service in a way where it's like, you're just gonna do cool things for the multiverse, right? To like set that up. We are setting it up in a way, but at the end of the day, if you're a writer of these stories, this is Wanda's story. And this is what I feel like is so beautiful about this show, is that it's a story about grief and loss. And we also have never seen a woman's grief portrayed this way. And I've cried through pretty much the last 2 episodes, because it was that touching to see it portrayed on screen in a way I hadn't really seen before. They touched upon it with Black Widow, but all of the action that needed to happen in those movies, needed to happen, so they only focused on it very little. With WandaVision, we have all of these episodes that give you an in-depth look at how it takes over and the message of hurt people, right? And I just thought they did that so beautifully for the entire series. And And, you know, not just Wanda's grief, but Monica's as well, losing her mom, being in the snap, coming back, and not understanding the world that she's in. I thought that was the story. So I think at first I was like, oh, I didn't expect the finale to go this way. You know, them flying around, Ryan. Like, I agree with you. I usually don't like that sort of thing either. But on second watch, I said that was a nice wrap up. They had the action in the beginning, and then they saved the heartfelt goodbyes for the ending, which closed up the stories. Now, I wish I would have seen a little bit more on the periphery characters, and where like maybe just a little more like what's their next step, you know, like with Darcy, we see her for a quick second and she says something like have fun in jail. You know, I kind of wanted to see what was their wrap up, and where we might glimpse them next. So that's what I wish for this episode, for the finale.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was initially I kind of got stuck in this whole like nothing burger thing, right? I posted about it on Twitter. I was like, I can't stand nothing burgers.
I've never heard that until you mentioned.
Seriously? Oh my God. Yeah, that's like a thing. But to your point about the emotional weight of like these last two episodes, specifically this one, like I told you guys when we were texting, the vision on vision conversation, and when he touched him and like kind of unlocked all of his memories or passed them on, that caught me. I don't know why it caught me, but I choked up real quick, and I was like, oh, he's gonna be Vision again. You know, that's awesome. And like, you know, Wanda isn't necessarily really losing him. So I thought that was interesting, although he just kind of disappears and we don't know what happens to him, which I hope he does. Of course, he'll probably pop up again. But the other part was when she's saying goodbye to her kids, because I've got 2 kids, and I can't even imagine like the bravery that it takes for her to, you know, in this moment, she's created this entire reality, this false reality. She's brought these kids into her world and has to now say goodbye. And that to me was like, that showed a lot of growth in her character. And that was tremendous. And then the exchange between her and Vision was like beautifully executed.
And I love
so well written.
I love it how real they made those moments.
Yeah.
Like they isolated it. They took it away from the chaos that was going on. And it was just that quiet, like family moment.
Right.
And then and then after all is done, she's standing there right back in that empty
lot,
you know, and it's just like brought it all home. I mean, yeah, there were a number of those moments as the show picked up a little bit, you know, especially the last couple of weeks. But a couple of things, I mean, not to take anything away from Elizabeth Olsen, who was great, right? And Catherine Hahn, who was just amazing. But like, Paul Bettany, we just got to talk more about him. I mean, we talked about it on the last episode, you know, and you were, Aaron, you were talking about the whole, like, the Christopher Reeve thing. And I was saying how just the way he's able to like just turn just with a subtle shift of his facial expressions or whatever, like he completely shifts. And you got to see it in full force here in this episode with the vision on vision stuff, because I mean, it's the same man, it's the same actor, just the way he changes his voice and just the way the little movements of his mouth and just the way his facial expressions and everything. And he became somebody different.
He had a little grimace.
Yeah, great. He did this thing with his lip that was like, first of all, that's brilliant. You can hold your face like that for that long to shoot a scene and then replicate it, because I'm sure they did many takes.
Yeah,
it was like a hollowness. It made him look even more hollow, maybe because you couldn't see the inside of his mouth.
Yep.
But it was this. It was so strange because it seemed like it was malice, like it was malicious, but it was really just the absence of anything that made it that. It was a brilliant little piece of acting.
Yeah.
And obviously, like the CG of his eyes and everything helps. Like it augments that. But boy, it was all over his face. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah, even the way he says Wanda when he sees her with that like warmth in his voice, but again, it was like, then he puts his hands around her head and picks her up, and I'm like, oh shit, it's getting real now. Yeah.
When he says I am Vision and change, like again, he changes. Like you get that change. Again, we mentioned it like Christopher Reeve in Superman 2 when he reveals himself, takes off the glasses and reveals himself to Lois, and just the expression and everything, the way his body, everything about him changed. You know exactly what he meant at that moment. Yeah. just fantastic stuff. I mean, this show, for all of the stuff that people didn't quote unquote get, right? The stuff that we just theorized about that was never realistic.
Sure.
It accomplished a lot though. Like when you really think about it, right? I mean, it's almost like we're overlooking the fact that Scarlet Witch is here now in the MCU, like
with the costume and everything,
the amazing
most comic accurate costume ever.
Yeah, and the amazing visions, no pun intended, the visuals, and I mean, you know, Doctor Strange. Like I loved all of that stuff that they were able to do with him, and now we're getting it like times like 10 here, and it's really cool. And we got an origin of sorts from Monica Rambeau and whatever she's going to be doing, right, going forward. You know, we still maybe we figured out the way how Paul Bettany and Vision are going to stay a part of this a little bit, right? We did get teases for what may be coming. Well, obviously they dropped the Sorcerer Supreme in the episode,
right?
So obviously we know what that's all about. You know, we got to see Sword. Clearly, you know, we got to see the tease with the Skrulls and what may be happening in Captain Marvel 2 and Secret Invasion, and you know, wherever else they're going to be going with that. Right. The introduction of the kids, which is obviously not over.
Right.
You know, and whatever they're going to, however that's going to factor in. So I mean, this and we did still, even without Mephisto and Reed Richards and Fantastic Four and Doctor Strange and all this other stuff, we still did get ideas of like parallel universes and worlds and how that can happen. So, I mean, this show really did, for a 9-episode limited series that spent its first few episodes essentially just doing the sitcom thing with some brief teases, it wound up accomplishing a lot in the end.
Yeah, agreed. No, I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to the future, what it means for the rest of the MCU. I mean, we always said this. It said a lot about the confidence that Marvel and Feige had in this show to kind of move it around, because I remember it was supposed to be later, right? I think these other movies were supposed to come out first, and then WandaVision was supposed to come after, and so they decided to lead with WandaVision first. So
I think Falcon Winter Soldier was supposed to be out in August, and then WandaVision,
they like
maybe in January. Yeah.
So I'm excited to see again, like how this ties into the next Doctor Strange movie, if it has any implications on anything else related to Spider-Man. I mean, like the multiverse stuff is great, and we know it's coming. You know, we're all hungry for it. But I agree. I think the way that the show kind of encapsulated its story and tied it up as best as could, while leaving a couple of breadcrumbs for the future, was well done, well executed for sure.
You know, it's really tragic too, because I feel like Wanda really got everything she wanted when they had that Incredibles moment, you know, with her family, and we didn't prepare you for this, but you were born for it.
Born for this, yeah.
They're working as a unit, and it's like she didn't have to write out her powers the way she wrote them out of the sitcom. She didn't have to hide them. She can embrace them in full force and still be accepted here.
Right.
Like that was the moment when I think that was her true wish in that moment. And then that was it, you know, and then she had the maturity, you know, Vanessa, like you were talking about, the show is about grief, and she had to win by moving on from that, you know. And Aaron, everything you said about leaving the kids behind, like, God, it was just heart-wrenching. I did not think that would happen. I thought the kids would age up and they would live somehow, because it's Disney Plus. Like you mentioned, Feige having the courage, you know, to move the show around. How about the courage to make those first 3 episodes just a sitcom?
That's right.
Or the courage to kill the kids at the end, which is essentially what they did. Like, to make the show about grief and the stages of grief, to not explain the commercials, to just have them be these little fun little like metaphorical symbolic pieces. You know, I wrote a video, one of my favorite videos, I think my favorite video I made this whole run is just me like talking about Marshall McLuhan and analyzing the commercials and reading as a message. And you know, I also threw some Doctor Strange stuff in there for neckbeards like myself. But you know, I love all that stuff, like that nuance and what it had to say on a meta level about television and how we view television, our relationship to television. For that to be their first television show was huge, for them to like have the courage to confront what they were doing that way. Now that being said, if I was going to throw out some gripes about the end, I think Wanda got off a little easy. Like she she seemed to feel bad, but she didn't try to make it up to the people in any way.
Right.
Monica said, "Oh, I would have done the same thing." Well, yeah, but she still, I think, and what she did unknowingly up to a point. She even tells Vision, as soon as I realized, that we can debate about when that was, but she's a criminal now. Like she's a very half hero, half villain, and who now has the dark hold. And it's like, you know, a baby cobra is more dangerous than a cobra because they don't know how much venom they're putting into somebody when they bite. And that's what she is now. Like she is a baby cobra with the most evil, with the one ring in Marvel Comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you talk about Doctor Strange too, like, oh, is it going to be Nightmare or Baron Mordo? It's going to be Wanda.
Be
like
Wanda, yeah.
That's maybe they'll have a mentor-mentee relationship or something at first, but oof, boy.
Yeah.
She's
the art of temptation is definitely there. And you know, I even think the way that it's played at that last scene where she's seemingly in her pajamas, like having tea, like in this peaceful thing, and yet she's in her full garb, you know, twisting the pages of the book, and then, you know, kind of stumbles onto the voice of her children kind of screaming out for her. It's like, yeah, hell hath no fury than a mama bear, you know what I mean? Like she's gonna be it's gonna get real. And I think that is probably gonna be the moment where I think you're right, she's gonna turn heel, you know. She'll be the villain.
Yeah, you know, it's when you talk about her getting off easy, I mean, the scene where Agatha snaps everyone out of it, and they're just like confronting her, like that's dark in a way where it's like the things they were saying, like, yes, we've gotten hints of it, right? Like when Vision was kind of snapping people, and like we understand what, like hearing like, please let my child out of the room, you know, and the other, we have your nightmares and all that stuff, and it's like she, like selfishly, she's like, but it's been great here, like she's trying to like, for you, but they're the ones suffering for all of that. Like that really just, like that moment, like really it changed a lot of things.
It got dark.
Like in my mind, it got back now. Dark. Yeah,
I'm like about little kids like locked in a room, like not being able to go to the bathroom type thing. Like, it was.
I just assumed they were comatose, that they were like in a, like the Odin sleep. You know, I didn't think they were in there like. I think that was a clever thing too when you know, Pietro says something to her about that, like, oh, it's pretty like nice how, and it was such a meta conversation too, like you kept the kids out of this basically because they wouldn't, you know, when you started, it was like putting kids in Grand Theft Auto, you know, they're not in the game for a reason. It's still like, you know, because that's too far for even that kind of game, you know. But
it is amazing that Marvel Studios gets criticized a lot for playing it safe and not taking chances, and kind of like I mentioned before, like this show, they had kids being aggressively shot at and attempting to run them over, then killed, and a dog killed in in this one show, and people suffering, you know, like mentally suffering and being tortured, like all happened in the course of this show, which is pretty bold. That started out as a sitcom, kind of.
Tomorrow we're gonna start working on a video. It might make it out tomorrow evening, might be the day after. It's gonna be I'm gonna call it Plot Holes Explained, but it's really just questions. And so I asked people in the community page and Twitter, like, hey, what are your questions, you know? And a couple people said, what was the point of Sword even being in it? Because if you look at it, like, it didn't actually affect the story. And I was like, well, Sword was in it for a couple reasons. One, it just was more interesting and enhanced the story, and it brought Monica in, and she's a parallel to Wanda, so we can see that ending through her lens. But also, if you look at it from a structural standpoint, if Sword hadn't been in the show, we would have never had that audience surrogate, like Darcy literally was, to help us figure out what was going on. Like if Sword wasn't in the show, you wouldn't have had episode 4, the episode that turned a lot of people around on the show. That's were very confused at first. So you can't, like, one thing that's kind of disappointing to see with Marvel fans especially is we're hungry for that cinematic universe. You know, we're hungry for that checklist, and what this has to lead to this, and this has to lead. Sometimes you just have to tell the story correctly. And with this, I think Sword was indispensable for telling the story this way. Hayward for me was like so obviously a jerk from the first time we met him. I thought, oh, he's going to end up being a hero because we're meant to think he's a jerk. And then when other people are like, oh, he's Mephisto, I'm like, he's not going to be Mephisto. But then he just turned out to be a jerk. Sometimes you can overtake stuff, you know.
Real big jerk.
Now I want to know who Jimmy Woo's man was that he was looking for. Is it Ralph Boner?
I think it was Ralph Boner. That's why he had a headshot.
Got it.
Because he was studying
Yeah.
it. That would be my guess. But
Yeah.
again, that's another thing we read too much into. Oh, why me? It was like, oh well, if Jimmy's witness is in the town and Agatha has a cellar, a dungeon in the town, then it has to be connected somehow. No,
Yeah.
I think it's just like Agatha's little thing is like something that would magically Wanda could walk into the same way Thor or anybody else magically walked into. It's magic, you know. It's kind of like the Force in Star Wars. You can just go,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean,
That's how that works.
One of those things where it's like, I have seen a lot of people asking, like, well, wait, who was that? Who was it? And it's like, well, it may not matter. Even if it is Ralph Boner, it may not matter because ultimately it was a way, it was a reason for him to be there, for Jimmy to be there. Right.
Mhm.
Not
Exactly.
why be there in Westview, New Jersey, you know, like obviously. So there had to be, and I mean, the coincidences of like, he's got this person in the witness protection program and it just so happens to be like, this is the town that she winds up taking, you know, and all of that stuff. Like, to have to I'm not even going to get into all of that stuff. Cause again, like, let them tell me that it matters. And then I'll think about it a little bit more.
If it turns out it was Mephisto, great. If it's not, you know, it's not, I mean, it's just, it's overthinking, which again, I do for a living. So that's fine. And it's fun, but you can't let it actually affect the actual art that the people have made. Like, we went for years with like Star Wars, the original trilogy has so many stupid, dumb coincidences in it, you know,
right?
We let go because, you know, I was a child when I watched it, but now as adults, we have the ability to go back and scrutinize every frame on our digital TVs. And what does she mean? The devil's in the details. Does that mean Dottie's the, you know, like all that kind of stuff, you know, where it's fun, but it's not if it doesn't go anywhere, they didn't hurt you. They didn't ask you to look for clues. They didn't have a contest, you know?
Yeah. It's a shame because I you know, and I'm guilty of it because I will fall down that rabbit hole all the time. I'll start setting it up like, oh my God, it's got to be that person. And I start looking through comic pages. Oh, okay, they said this line in that page. And yeah, I go nuts with it. But you know, I think at the end of the day, to your point, the story was great. And for me to have that kind of emotional reaction to these characters in the way that, like, they didn't get much screen time in the last two Avengers films or many films beyond that, right? And that relationship between Wanda and Vision, I was totally invested in. The family life that they created, I was invested in, and that's the awesome part to me. That is like those were two characters that I think were on the back end. Like, again, when we're talking about the Avengers, they led with a B star in Iron Man, and these guys were like C or D players, and now they've been pushed to the forefront. And I think like Wanda stepping out of that show is a true badass, and the fact that she has the ability to be a villain that puts one of our toughest heroes, Doctor Strange, on the back of his heels, I think is great.
Yeah, I think it's the best love story in the MCU. Sorry, Vanessa, I didn't mean to step on you there, but I would put them over, you know, Quill and Gamora, because a lot of the stuff they went through happened off screen.
Yep.
Tony and Pepper had a great organic relationship. Steve and Peggy was more of that unrequited thing. Yep. It was more like, oh, that sucks. You know, it was mostly the first movie and then the last scene in Endgame. But they've gotten the most time to really show how broken they both were, how much they needed each other, even with just some very light strokes in Civil War. Yeah, I think they had like 2 scenes alone together in that movie. Right. And very, very well written movie, and that it could do that. It could like shape a character in just 2 or 3 scenes.
It's also an interesting romance because he's a synthezoid, you know, and it's between, I don't want to say, you know, he's not human. So that episode when he's trying to understand her grief and he doesn't, and, you know, we get that beautiful line. I think that's what's so interesting about their relationship, is that they can still relate to each other in that way and build on both of their loneliness in different ways.
Right.
Yeah, they really do complement each other in a way, because like she's been dealing with this grief, right? Which is this powerful human emotion. And he's just logical, and calm for the most part. And it's like almost like he's able to deal with her grief, and she adds a humanity to him. that almost, so they just really complement each other.
Like, I want a vision.
Yeah, right.
Like, I want a man like that.
Yeah.
And if you're going to establish her, if she is going to wind up being a villain, at least partially, right, or at least to a point, it was vital to get this story out there, right? Because like you said, Aaron, prior to this, like, yes, they had this romance and we knew about it and they've been involved in these movies and stuff, but you really needed to drive this home to pay off whatever's going to happen, right? So this show had a payoff. And it's going to continue to pay off. I mean, this story is not over, and you need to have that emotional connection. We've talked about this with other movies. Like, unless you set up, don't tell me why I should have a connection to somebody or that something happened. It's show me, let me invest in it myself. And if I can do that, it's going to pay off that much more. Like a lot of the things that happened in, Infinity War and Endgame, that paid off because we lived with those characters and we lived with those moments, and there were callbacks to things that we had seen. So it really was important for them to get this moment and to bring it home, seeing seemingly where they're headed in the future.
And also, if she does turn heel, right, in the next Doctor Strange movie, I think you cannot say that Marvel anymore has a villain problem,
Yeah.
Because it's going to be, as I've connected to Wanda so much, and, I have cried with her and through her, that there's going to be some part of me, if she does turn bad, that's empathetic naturally. And that creates, like, in Endgame and Infinity War with Thanos, I know a lot of people related to him and understood and was like, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to start fresh, wanting to wipe out, half of the universe.
And you call these people friends?
I don't, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, how Marvel moving forward are looking at its characters. It's not really black and white. It's more nuanced than that. And we've been talking, about storytelling and how the methods of storytelling are also changing as audiences get smarter, throughout time. And if they have figured this out and go this route, I think Marvel is going to be on a really good footing for the next phase. That, something that like DC is still trying to figure out, for example.
Well, what you said about the villain problem, I think that's especially phase 2, like Thor: The Dark World, to a certain extent, hell of it. I mean, Killmonger, the kind of villain where when the hero always has this moment where he's like, oh, you can turn him back and don't do that thing. Most of the time you're like, I don't care, it's a bad guy. But with Wanda, if we do find ourselves in that situation with her, or she finds herself in that situation, we're going to genuinely mean it.
Yeah.
We're going to genuinely be like, please take his hand, or whatever the moment is.
Right.
Like, we really will want her to come back from that, and boy, because they've cemented her motivation, and we're there with her. Like, those kids were great.
100%.
And there's a great moment in the finale where Agatha is telling her, like, you are gonna destroy the world. And she like barks back at her, like, I am not what you say I am. I'm not this, I'm not that. I was not forged. She doesn't quite understand her future yet. And it's like, I don't know if this is correct, but maybe one of the first times we've kind of seen like a prophecy type of thing, in the universe. And I find that really interesting that now we're bringing in other types of tropes like witches and magic and prophecy into the next phase. That's really exciting to me. I love anything that has to do with, that kind of stuff.
And you're getting Blade too, so there's going to be a lot of magic.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that I'm so stoked for.
And the tragedy of that whole thing is that I fully believe she is going to like destroy the world. I believe that is something that is going to, I mean, it may not fully come true, but we're going to be on the brink of it at some point.
But which world?
Right. That's or multiple. Maybe, maybe by destroy the world, it doesn't mean literally just means open up these new worlds, which could destroy the world that we know, basically. Yeah.
Have any of you, I almost talked about this in the video, but I thought it was too long of a rabbit hole to go down. Have any of you read the comic book Promethea, the Alan Moore book, America's Best Comics? It's a cat tail.
There it is. Like, hey, what's up? That was awesome.
Apollo. Like,
That was
get
great.
him over there. The other one's over here, and they're going to be crossing my way. Well, long story short, Promethea is a book. Young girl gets powers. It's very tied to like mysticism and the occult. The whole book is just Alan Moore believes in the occult.
Right.
But it's great. It lasted 40 something issues. It told the story he wanted to tell, and then he ended it. But Promethea is prophesized to destroy the world. And small spoiler alert, turns out that's not a bad thing, because when they talk about destroying the world, it's about like cleaning the rot out of the world, all the bad things in the world, remaking the world. Like the Phoenix in Marvel Comics is about destroying, like literally destroying and something new coming from the ashes. Could be that using chaos magic to destroy the world may not be a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm with that. And I just, again, I mean, there's so many different areas and stories that they could pursue that, like I said from the very beginning, when we watched that first episode of WandaVision, I was like, I love the boldness of Marvel at this moment, the fact that they could leave with episodes like this, a show like this. I'm on board for the next iteration of whatever it is they're bringing to me, because they have me hook, line, and sinker. Like, I'm good. Let's go.
I was telling my wife that had this been a more conventional structure, or had it been a movie, the order would have been, you would have started with her as a kid with Pietro. It would have been a much shorter scene. Then it would have gone to her going to Sword, Can I See His Body, and being all sad. Then we would have seen the creation of Westview. And then we probably would have gone straight to Monica. We probably would have seen Monica reform before that, but then we would have had Monica and Sword. Oh, we're in the anomaly. Then we would have just seen bits of the sitcom throughout, like very small bites. And it would have been a completely different story. And it wouldn't have nearly had this, the tease and the structure and the fun of like, even though a lot of the things we thought were important weren't, some of them really were though. Some of the things that, just to dovetail real quick, things like Agnes saying, oh, Dottie runs everything in this town, and the devil's in the details. That's not the only place he is. We're all like, oh, well, Dottie's clearly Satan. She's Mephisto.
Right.
Well, but also look at that, where she's placing emphasis on Dottie. Wanda starts to copy Dottie. Dottie does for the children. The whole town does for the children. Now, then obviously Wanda has kids. Two ways to look at that. Wanda was doing the influence and somehow subconsciously telling herself to have kids, or Agnes was still doing that because, like she says, she was testing Wanda's abilities.
Right.
The Scarlet Witch, she says, is a being who is able to create life spontaneously. She wanted to see if she could do that. Later on, she killed Sparky and tried to like coerce her to raise Sparky from the dead to see if she could raise people from the dead.
Right.
That was still Agatha all along. Like, I firmly believe, I just don't think that she had like, she wasn't serving the Mephisto or whoever's in the Darkhold, Chthon, whoever. Necessarily, she was just for her own kind of purposes, trying to gauge her strength. So I think that some of those things that we thought didn't pay off really did. We just didn't interpret it the right way. Right.
And we have to remember that Agatha was out for Wanda's power, right? So to see how far she could push her, and so she could eventually suck that all up, and that's exactly what she tried to do at the end. But finally someone smartens up and they learn something in an episode, right?
This is all the beauty of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to say one thing. Catherine Hahn, when she gets turned back to Agnes and she's doing her bit, but in her eyes you see her tears. Yeah, that was so powerful. You saw a person trapped in a body.
Yeah,
and I just thought that was brilliant.
She's incredible. Like you talk about someone like her, and Elizabeth Olsen have so much range. And Catherine Hahn got to have a blast. And can you think of anything more fun than playing the villain in a Marvel movie?
Oh yeah.
And she got to not only play the villain, but got to ham it up in a sitcom before that. Like every kind of sitcom you can think of.
Yeah.
I mean, she played the annoying like neighbor and the evil witch, like all in the same.
Yeah.
kind of,
and a victim. She dovetailed into that and played, did that whole thing with Vision, and so good.
Yeah.
Oh, her at the stake when she's like, no. I was like, those are some of the best like pleas I've ever seen. It was so believable.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure what was real and what wasn't. When she was saying I need a teacher, I think she might have meant that part. But when she was saying, oh, please, those were crocodile tears. There's just certain lines in that I still went back at when I watched it the second and third time. I'm like, okay, that's real. That's not. That's real. That's not. Like I do think that because they say like, oh, you've delved too deep in the dark holds clearly an evil book. She's like the dwarves in the mines of Moria. She dug too deep. She unlocked something very foul. She was poisoned by some kind of sickness, which personally, if I'm going to like nitpick the show and gripe, in the comics, Agatha and Wanda's relationship is not adversarial. Right. Agatha is a person who's very mysterious. She's portrayed as kind of a gray character. But all of these men who come into Wanda's life and manipulate her and take advantage of her, Agatha was her ally. She was the one trying to break that influence. She taught her how to use magic in addition to her mutant powers. She's always been that person for her. So I was disappointed that we didn't see that here, but I kind of think we're teasing that. I don't think we've seen the last of those two characters together.
The whole reason why they left her there. I think there's gonna have to come a point where maybe, and we,
well, I mean, she literally says,
for expectation,
if I need you, I know where to find you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think with all the hype, Catherine Hahn was like the revelation of this show. Like everybody was talking about her. I don't think this is not the last that we've seen her in this character. But this is really the beauty of having this Disney Plus format, right? So, Marvel now is able to really flesh out some of these characters, right? And they would not be able to have done this if it was just movies, because you're only going to be able to have so many movies a year, and you're only going to be able to tell so many stories. And by now they have this forum where they can take these characters. So they know that Scarlet Witch is going to be a big part of this next phase, or at least a few of the movies. So what do? Well, now you have a show that you can completely give her all of the backstory, all of the build, all of the, and Falcon and Winter Soldier, and you're going to get to see more Loki. I mean, this is stuff they never would have been able to accomplish before, and it's going to add so much because they're going to just be able to add so much more weight and so many more stakes to, I think, a lot of these movies going forward as everything starts to tie together.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, as a company, they also get to challenge themselves.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when you just have to come up with a movie every 2 years on a certain character, you have time. But when, like, for Wanda's character, they've established so much. We are so invested. Even if fans are disappointed in our fan theories not, coming true or whatnot, and people are really angry and they're calling like Wanda the villain and whatever, it's a testament that we are invested, that we actually care. So if I was Marvel, I'd be looking at that like, this is great. People are involved and people are speaking their minds because they care about this. If they didn't, that would be the worst thing for them. So I think even in this format, Chris, they get to challenge themselves on now, how do they stay accountable to all the shows that are coming out and are setting up, certain characters, certain storylines, certain plot lines. And I think that will also make the movies better.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And what I was going to say, and it aligns perfectly with what you just said in the format, is it's the comics. The comics have the individual issues, small story arcs that feed into the big crossover movies. And that's what, I have a friend who does video essays named Patrick Willems. He's great. You should check out his stuff. And he brought up that point that, we only got to see that Avengers team for like one mission in Civil War before they were forced to split up. There's all these little side stories that we had to just be hinted at that we didn't get fleshed out. Right. And now they could do that. It's so exciting.
Yeah. And they get to give us different genres of shows too, right? So like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is it spy thriller again? Great. Like sign me up. Everything else, animation, the What If series that's going to be dropping. I said it before. I'm signed up. That's it.
And you talk about the multiverse. That's Loki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait for Loki. That to me that just looks like a bonkers show. Totally bonkers. With multiple Lokis popping up. I'm with it.
That's gonna be insane.
Have they confirmed the multiple Loki thing, or is that still
I
theory?
I think it's still a theory. I am buying up every comic I can get my hands on that starts to like, oh yeah, this is Lady Loki, I'm all
Kid
for it.
Loki, and
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine so. Just given some of the costume choices in some of the trailers, like that's what started to clue me in on it. And I'm like, maybe they're gonna go down this road.
Yeah, like DB Cooper is probably a different Loki.
Maybe, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Who knows? Let's not get ourselves so wound up with the theories. Right? We'll end up with the no, that didn't happen based on just 2 minutes of a trailer. But cool. Anything else? Any final thoughts before we close up?
There was one thing I wanted to mention, which I thought was another powerful moment that I really liked, was when Hayward was shooting at the kids.
Yep.
And Monica jumps in front and the bullets go through her. I think that imagery, not only because she's a Black woman, I thought that was a really powerful moment. And the last time I saw something similar was in Luke Cage.
Oh.
Yes.
With his bulletproof like hoodie. So I just wanted
it became an emblem.
Yeah, just
for everybody. Yeah.
Like just with everything that we're going through this year, I just thought for them to do that, and I don't know if that was like even meant to be, but I just wanted to point that out. Like I really like that moment.
There was a whole lot of awesome in that whole sequence, just the family getting together and you take care of the military and all that, and the way he stops the bullet, and I mean that whole thing was awesome.
Yeah, and I'm really go ahead, Ryan.
No. I keep cutting you off. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just excited to see the kids again. That's all.
I was about to say I'm just excited.
Yeah.
Another thing in the finale that I thought, well, when White Vision says I'm Vision, right?
Yeah.
But he flies away. I thought, well, wait, hold on. So wait, your Vision.
I thought you were Vision though, man.
But you just wrote yourself out of the story because because it would be weird. And that's all that was. Like if he's really Vision, I'm sure they'll explain where he went, but if he's really Vision, he would have stayed and helped Wanda if he's got all those memories. So maybe it tells you that he has the memories, but not the emotions. And it's two separate things because he doesn't have the essence of the Mind Stone in him. Or maybe Dream Vision, Mind Stone Vision passed that essence of the Mind Stone to him. I don't know yet. There was like a little bit of yellow in his stone when he did that to him. But that to me is, I was like, okay, well, they wrote him out of the ending so he can be in the next thing, probably create the younger or whatever he's going to do.
Right.
That was the only other, like I'm mentioning nitpick things. That along with like Wanda kind of just not really facing, no one even mentioning repercussions for her, not even Jimmy Woo going, wait, we're supposed to arrest her, right?
Yeah, like or try to, right? Like she's gonna... I think
Monica didn't even try to, and she's got superpowers.
No, Monica was like, I get it. Go ahead. You're
right.
You're good.
You do you.
Yeah. I think the thing with Vision is that it would have lessened the impact of that goodbye if he had popped back up, because then it means he's not really you know what I mean? He's not lost. He's still there in physical form, so she kind of gets her cake and eat it too in a way. So I'm glad that he disappeared, but again, to your point, it's like, where do you go? Here we go, let's theorize. Is he the one that brings her back from the precipice after she goes dark, and he pops up and he's like, hey, I'm still here, I still remember everything, and she's like, wait, why am I doing this? No, that's not gonna happen.
And I don't think he flew away to destroy himself because his program is, or else he just would have done it on camera. Like he's clearly this is a way to bring him back and be involved in the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely, now wasn't the time for that, but there will be a time for it. And again, it will pay off. It will be a bigger payoff when it does happen down the road, just for everything that was set up here. Yeah.
I mean, just wait for the next actor to say they get to work with an amazing, an amazing actor, and it actually ends up being Paul Bettany's Vision pops up in a show.
Yeah.
Who knows? you know. All right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let's wrap it up. Chris, let's do the closing.
Sure. So go to the fanboygarage.com. You can check out our episodes. You can check out our shrinking merch store. You can, of course, join the conversation on the social media, the Facebook, the Instagram, and the Twitter at the Fanboy Garage. And, of course, our YouTube channel, the Fanboy Garage Podcast. If you like our episodes, subscribe, hit the notification button, and all that fun stuff. You can find me on Twitter at RealCLMighty.
And you guys can find me at banana_TFG.
And Ryan, where can they find you?
At Ryan Arey, RyanArey, and YouTube videos on ScreenCrush.
Awesome. And I'm Aaron Verola. You can find me on Twitter at Aaron Speaks, because I can always get my name right. It is _Ron Speaks. Thank you once again for listening to episode 135 of the Fanboy Garage. As always, we're happy that you guys have tuned in. You've watched us. You've listened to us. But we'll catch you guys next week. Take care.
Peace. Bye. This is my little baby.
Oh, hello. I got a puppy too. He's in the next room. He's probably
just
sleeping, so I'm not going to show him off.
Okay.
But this was fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
Ryan,
that was
awesome.
great.
Yeah, it was good
Yeah,
stuff.
appreciate it.